One of the biggest challenges that we are faced with when somebody passes is all the stuff they leave behind. These may be clothes or belongings of that loved one that they have left behind, but in some cases, they're going to be rooms that are now empty. Whether you have a child that had passed away or a partner, if you were living together in one house, there's now going to be this room filled with all of the things that belong to them, filled with so many unfulfilled dreams, filled with the love that we once had for them, the love that they shared with us, and unfortunately now the pain of them not being there anymore. Whether this is going to be your child's room or the room of a spouse or the room of a friend, either way, it is going to be extremely painful. And in some cases, you may have to empty that room due to circumstances. For example, when my mom passed away, she lived in the Netherlands, but the place where she lived at, she was just renting it out. So we had no choice but to take everything pretty much immediately out of that apartment and put it somewhere else. So that choice of whether to leave the room as it is or to take everything out, in that case, was just taken away from us. And this is exactly what today's video is about. I have heard that there's a lot of judging around somebody leaving a room exactly the way it is, because why would you do that? It's time to move on. Just get going with it, clean out the room, make space for something new, and so forth. There's so many things that people like to say to somebody who's grieving when really they have no idea how that is actually feeling inside and what that implies for somebody. Because I have to tell you that I strongly disagree with all of those judgments. If I would have had the chance to keep my mom's apartment exactly the way it was, believe me, I would have done that. And I probably would have done that for the next 30 years. And that may sound creepy to a lot of people because it's like, just move on. But for me, having just things of my mom makes me feel so close to her. So I absolutely love having all of her clothes and little cards and items, little lucky charms. She had so many of those things, like little decoration stuff for the house. They are all over my house and I wear her clothes all the time. We were talking about that in another video the other day. I'll link it up here. But to me, it's a way of feeling closer to her. And I would give everything to have that place where she last lived with all of her belongings exactly the way they were. I also believe that that is simply human because I am 99% sure I'm not the only one who would do that. I have now read about many people who have literally left the room of a child that had passed away exactly the way it is for years. Nobody is allowed to touch anything. Maybe nobody's even allowed to go in there. In any case, it is fine. There's absolutely no reason for you to feel weird or ashamed about this. Now, obviously, you might be the complete opposite. The more I learn about grief and the more I read about it, the more I realize there's often two extremes of people. The ones that are either completely push it aside or the ones that are fully immersing in it. So if you are somebody who says, I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore, I want it to go away, I don't want to be reminded of it all the time, then that is exactly what you need in that moment, and that is okay. It is totally fine either way to do things exactly the way that you feel you have to do them. The only problem that sometimes now can come up, let's say you have a partner and you too have lost your child. If now one of you says that they want the room exactly the way it is, whereas the other one says, I want everything to be thrown away, it's going to be very highly likely that you are going to clash and you're going to argue. So in that case, I can really recommend you to try and find some sort of compromise. Don't let, during this already tough time where we need each other, don't let little things like that get in the way of your relationship, because that is, quite frankly, the last thing you need in that moment. Finishing up this rather short video, please remember, no matter whether you want to keep the room or not, either way is totally okay. It is fine to keep it exactly the way it is for the next 30 years. It is also fine to throw everything out 3 minutes later. Whatever you feel you need is going to make you feel okay in that moment and simply survive in that moment, because that's bottom line what we have to do when it comes to grieving. All that matters is we're somehow surviving in this new reality of ours. And no matter what way you are going in this situation, that is okay. Because like I always say, the most important thing is that you feel closer to your loved one.